When Shannon's lawsuit made international headlines alleging Nick of SA in 2001, her allegation was a revelation to the general public. But she was no stranger to those of us who observed her online antics for the last few years. We witnessed her allegation evolve from Nick being mean to her into alleging SA. And you'll see that her police reports outline a similar storyline. Prior to this, Shannon was a fan of Aaron and Nick. While she was a bigger fan of Aaron's, she did retweet Nick in 2017, followed him on Twitter, and sent condolences to the Carter family when Nick and Aaron's sister Leslie passed away. But all of that changed in 2019 when she got involved with the Schumann smear campaign against Nick and was used to bolster Melissa's allegation. On September 17, 2019, Nick filed a restraining order against his brother Aaron due to his increasingly alarming behavior. Aaron quickly retaliated by proclaiming himself a silence breaker who is exposing Nick and giving a platform to the accusers, who he claimed reached out to him for help. The Schumans had a lot of involvement with Aaron during this time, and we will go into a lot more detail in a separate video.
On September the 21st, 2019, days into Aaron and the Schumans' Twitter campaign, Shannon tweeted to them wanting to join. In the next tweets, you will see that Shannon is referring to Nick when she says Voldemort, and the tweet reveals she was not identifying herself as one of Nick's victims, but as a victim of abuse in general. 3 days later, Shannon reached out directly to Jerry Schumann. After some confusion on where Shay's support lies, she asks if she can send Jerry a DM, and Jerry says, "You may. I have just followed." For now, we're going to focus on certain details from the police reports on how Shannon's story evolved and how she does appear to be influenced. The first report is from the Hurricane Police Department in Utah on November the 26th, 2019. This is 2 months after her initial tweets to the Schumans. In the first report, Shannon told the officer she'd been cyberbullied and an assault had taken place in another state.
And if you followed along since the restraining order, you will remember how often Aaron and Melissa talked about cyberbullying.
That same day, the officer met with Shannon at her work to get more information on the cyberbullying. Shannon told the officer that Nick assaulted her, then tried to her in 2001 after a Backstreet Boys concert in Seattle, Washington. But she didn't say anything because Nick has been making threats towards her.
I don't recall seeing any threats made towards Shay. Do you?
I don't remember that. And I also don't recall Nick hiring people to stalk and harass Shay, which she also claimed in the police report. Shay told the officers she's friends with Melissa Schumann, who is also a victim of Nick's. And here's the interesting part. Then Shay calls Melissa for support, and Melissa told the officer that she met Shannon 3 months ago on Twitter and that she knows what happened to Shannon. After this conversation with Shannon and Melissa, the officer provided Shannon with a witness statement to complete, gave her a victim's advocate pamphlet, and told her she needed to report the incident to the police department in Seattle, Washington. On December 3rd, 2019, the same officer made contact with Shannon and collected her completed witness statement relating to the incident. Shannon told the officer she wanted to talk to Melissa and once again wanted her support, so they did a FaceTime with her. During this FaceTime, Melissa helps with Shay's report by telling the officer that several people have been trying to hack into her and Shannon's social media accounts. Shannon told the officer she was not AR'd, but was assaulted as Nick attempted to grape her. She showed pictures of bruises, but did not want to send the pictures to attach to the incident. The next day, on December 4, 2019, Shannon made contact with an officer at the Tacoma Police Department, where she reported she went to a concert with her friend Joy, who said she managed a fan club for Nick Carter. After the show, they went to the band's bus for autographs, and Nick invited her to his bus and eventually led her to his bed. She said she felt awkward. As she got up to leave, he grabbed her arm, which left a bruise. Shannon said he only grabbed her arm and no other physical activity occurred.
Around 9 months later, Shannon made 2 subsequent reports to the police. August 25, 2020, almost a year after her first interaction with the Schumans, is when Shay first alleges and reports that Nick SA'd her. And these reports evolved into an increasingly aggressive SA. Once again, Shay mentions she had spoken to Melissa and Ashley about details of the alleged incident, which goes to show how involved Melissa and Ashley were during Shannon's ever-evolving story. And on September 17, 2020, Shannon submitted a handwritten addendum where she changed a number of key details from her previous police reports. One of those changes was the friend she went to the concert with, which was previously her friend Joy, and she changed it to her friend Eleanor.
On December 30, 2021, Shannon, Melissa, and Jerry appeared on a podcast for Child USA with a woman named Marcy Hamilton. Marcy Hamilton is an academic and the founder and CEO of Child USA. Through the years, Marcy has developed and maintained relationships with various law firms. Each of Nick's accusers, by the way, are represented by one of these firms.
And we will dive more into Marcy and these law firms down the road. It's also interesting to note that Corey Feldman is an ambassador for Child USA, and Marcy, who's a staunch advocate for allegations with no proof, has spoken highly of Corey, despite the various public allegations made against him.
Shannon filed her lawsuit in Nevada on December 8, 2022. A month after Nick's brother Aaron passed away on November 5th, and a day after what would have been Aaron's 35th birthday. This felt like a strategic move to kick Nick while he was in a vulnerable emotional state, and take advantage of the press Nick and the Backstreet Boys were getting following the release of their long-awaited Christmas album. This was also a way to interfere with the promotional TV appearances that they had lined up for their Christmas album titled A Very Backstreet Christmas, including getting their own ABC Christmas special, A Very Backstreet Holiday, that was due to air 1 week later and was cancelled due to Shannon's lawsuit. Their GMA and other appearances also got cancelled, and they also lost a recent MeUndies contract and other endorsements. A day before filing their lawsuit, Shannon's attorneys posted a live press conference announcement on their firm's Facebook page, as well as a media advisory out to all the local LA news outlets, which said, announcing an SA lawsuit filed against Nick Carter of the Backstreet Boys for the rape of a young teenage girl. This was a clear attempt to drum up as much public exposure to their lawsuit and their firm. During this press conference, Shannon's attorney, Mark Boscovich, constantly encouraged other individuals to come forward with accusations of SA against Nick and to call or email his law firm. What looks like an attempt to recruit more women to join them. The firm even had a hotline to call with an ad that read, "Attorney Mark Boscovich is encouraging other women who may have been SA by Nick Carter to call," with a number attached. In general, and we firmly believe this, any allegation should be properly investigated, but the ethical practices of these law firms are questionable, along with having witnessed Melissa's supporters used to bolster her credibility by making accusations against Nick and to reinforce that there is truth in numbers. This only reinforces to us the significance and the importance of properly investigating every allegation when it is made.
And throughout this media campaign, Shannon's alleged disabilities, her claim of HPV, and being a minor at the time of alleged incident were all weaponized to garner more outrage and salacious headlines. In attendance at this press conference was Marcy Hamilton of Child USA. She spoke of Shay's bravery and how her coming forward was making history and would change the world. And therefore, she said today should be called Shay Day. Later that day, Marcy tweeted about Shay's bravery once again. Interestingly, there were multiple replies hidden by Marcy within this tweet. These replies were filled with people pointing out that Shay admitted to lying and various other issues with Shay's allegation. But we're not really surprised that Marcy doesn't care whether Shay's allegation is actually true, and that she has no concern with helping these accusers cause damage to a potentially innocent man and instead will conceal the truth.
Joy, the original friend Shannon claimed attended the show with her, provided an affidavit for Nick. Joy had watched the press conference that had Shannon and her lawyer publicly announcing their lawsuit against Nick, which really just goes to show just how viral their media stunt had spread. Joy was angered by Shannon's allegations and knew some of her statements were not possible. Joy said she met Shannon in a chat room that was created for Aaron Carter fans in the early 2000s. Joy was a street team leader for Aaron, and Shannon joined Aaron's street team. If you remember, Shay had originally said in her police report that Joy managed a fan club for Nick, so this was also a change in her story. Shannon and Joy developed a friendship, and Joy said Shannon knew she was going to be at the Backstreet Boys show at the Dome on February 25th, 2001. But Shannon never told her she was also going to that show. Joy was staying at the Four Seasons Olympic Hotel, the same hotel the Backstreet Boys were staying at while they were there. So after the show, Joy and her friend Melissa, coincidentally, not the same one, left the show before it ended, so they were able to get back to the hotel before the Backstreet Boys did. The hotel was approximately a 35-minute drive from the Dome. While in the lobby, Joy personally observed Nick Carter entering the hotel approximately 40 minutes after Joy and her friend left the show. And to quote Joy, "Given that we left the concert early and that the hotel is located approximately 35 minutes from the Tacoma Dome, Shannon's story is factually impossible." The other friend Shannon claimed attended the show with her, Eleanor, had a deposition on February 6, 2024. In regards to Shannon's accusation of Nick infecting her with HPV, Shannon said she showed Eleanor her genital warts and claims Eleanor went with her to a clinic to have them examined and stayed with her the entire time. However, Eleanor says Shannon never told her she had genital warts, never showed them to her, and that she never accompanied her to a clinic. In regards to Shannon's claims of Nick grabbing her arm, which caused bruising, Shannon testified that Eleanor asked her about the bruising and took a picture of it. However, once again, Eleanor says Shannon never showed her any of the bruising on her arm, and she never took pictures of any bruises. Eleanor also shared in her deposition that Shannon offered to share money with Eleanor if she recovered anything from the lawsuit with Nick, and that bothered Eleanor. She said, "That's not what I was in this for, and yeah, there's no way." Shannon had claimed that due to the emotional trauma from the SA, she started self-harming by cutting herself to cope with the pain.
After my assault, I started cutting myself to hide my pain. I felt like I had nowhere to turn, no way to express my emotions, pain and confusion, except by hurting myself.
However, Eleanor and Joy said they had knowledge of Shannon self-harming before this alleged incident in 2001. Eleanor said she first noticed Shannon's self-harm in the fall of 2000, and Joy had said in her declaration she noticed wounds on Shannon's arms in the summer of 2000, and that Shannon's self-harm was known and discussed on the street team she was part of with Shannon. In 2019, Shannon also became friends with Heather Hyatt on Twitter. During this time, Heather felt like Shannon was being used to keep up Melissa and Aaron's smear campaign against Nick. On October 20, 2019, Shannon confided in Heather that she had never been sexually assaulted by Nick. In these Twitter DMs, Shay asks, "Can I ask you something?" Heather replies, "Yes, of course." Shay then confesses, "I feel bad. I didn't get hurt by Nick like Melissa and Ashley did. He hurt me by saying really mean things and bullying me."
Nick provided affidavits from various personnel who were present at the time of the alleged incident. Most of these witnesses who were employed during the Black and Blue tour echoed the same protocol, which outlined how Shannon's allegation was factually impossible. So we're going to try to give some key differences. None of these witnesses are currently employed by Nick or Backstreet Boys.
Marcus Johnson, AJ McLean's primary security guard during the Black and Blue tour. The Black and Blue tour had a strict security protocol that included security accompanied each of the band members at all times. The only time a band member was allowed to be left alone was after they were escorted by security to their own hotel room. Tour buses were required to travel together and stay together. It was strictly prohibited for any band member to be alone on their respective tour bus with a fan, given the security team's concerns that fans could be aggressive and unpredictable. Tom Hudak, production manager during Black and Blue tour. After every performance during the Black and Blue tour, the protocol was to provide each band member with a towel and robe as they left the stage. Then they were to be escorted to their respective tour buses and depart from the venue immediately to the hotel. This was called a quick out. Robert Fontenot, venue security director during Black and Blue tour. There were no autograph lines after the performances. If there were any fan interactions with band members, these would only take place before a performance. The tour buses were parked in an area that was always guarded by security personnel to ensure that no unauthorised persons could access or come near the band members' buses. Jonathan Morant managed Crystal Harris, Backstreet Boys' opening act during the Black and Blue tour. As a talent manager and musician myself, I've been on many music tours. The security, organisation, structure and overall access restrictions during the Black and Blue World Tour were extremely stringent. Ms. Ruth claims that Nick Carter remained at the venue and invited her onto the tour bus is false. Once again, all of the artists, including Nick Carter, were immediately exited the venue after both shows. Moreover, fans did not have access to the tour bus staging area, so this would be impossible for her to get on his tour bus before the band's buses left together. Carlos Cardias, personal security for Kevin Richardson. Billy Evans, who passed away, was chief of security at the time and served as a primary security for Nick Carter. Billy was very strict about making sure Nick was always safe and never not left alone with any fans. I personally observed Billy treating Nick as if he were his own son and was very overprotective of him, to the point Nick was required to ask Billy's permission to go anywhere during the Black and Blue tour. Brian Littrell, Backstreet Boys member. Anytime my band members and I would leave the building to board the tour buses after a concert, we would stay together. The mantra was, come one, come all, so that we were always accounted for. Our security detail was very strict about following protocol, no matter what, since the main concern was for our safety. Nick Carter. I recall the Tacoma Dome shows, but do not recall Shannon Ruth at all. Having met and encountered millions of fans and people over the course of my 34-year career, it would be impossible for me to definitely know if I ever crossed paths with Shannon Ruth. However, I do not recognise her face and do not believe I have ever met her. I am, however, absolutely certain I have never had sex with Shannon Ruth, that I never essayed Shannon Ruth, and that I did not grab, bruise Shannon Ruth's arm. Shannon Ruth's statements that I essayed her are totally false.